Welcome to Shedding the Shame. I'm your host, Tammy Wong. This is where women stop whispering about the hard things. No performing, no fixing, no pretending we're fine. Just honest conversations about what we've carried, what it cost us, and how we rebuilt. You don't need a perfect story. You just need the courage to tell the truth. You are not broken. You are not dramatic. And you are not alone. Let's shed the shame. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Shedding the Shame. Today, we're talking to Ruth, and she's in Tennessee. We actually met through the alopecia community on Instagram when she started sharing her hair loss story back in January, right?
Yes.
And I've loved seeing her open up more about her hair loss and the different wigs she's wearing. But today we are going to talk about something very different, which is domestic violence. And I know this can be a triggering topic for people. So if this is you, if that is triggering for you, you might want to skip this episode. Ruth, thank you so much for joining me today and just being willing to talk about something that is very sensitive and that you've probably gone through a long journey with.
Yes,
So,
you're welcome. First of all, thank you.
Yeah. Can you tell us all a little bit about yourself and what brings you to this conversation today and why you wanted to share?
Well, I wanted to share one because I think I know it's a very important topic to talk about. For so long, and many women have gone through this journey and have felt ashamed to speak up about it. I kind of want to break that cycle. I want to share my story. For me, abuse came at a very early age. When I was 5, I witnessed my mother being beaten by my father, and he beat her pretty severely. First encounter I had with that, first encounter I ever had with police. If it wasn't for our Nana, surrogate Nana downstairs, I don't know how far it would have gone. And then I eventually ended up marrying almost a carbon copy of my father. I was married to 2 kids at 16. Yeah. Yeah.
And I know that happens. I mean, that's something that is talked about as when you grow up in an abusive family, that many times that can manifest itself or that can turn into you being with an abusive partner because that's all you grow up seeing. It's
Yes.
normalized for you.
Yes.
And it's hard, I think, for some people to understand that. But I think that kind of leads into my second question because it has been part of your story since you were so young.
Mhm.
What feels important for you to share about that right now that maybe you feel like people wouldn't understand about why it would, you would end up with somebody that was like
Yeah.
your dad?
Yeah. Well, it's exactly like you said, it's normalized and you almost kind of become desensitized to it. You look at it as this is my life, this is what happens in my life. It wasn't until I ran from my husband when I had just turned 20. When we had to run. He had not only alcohol struggles like my father did, but he also had substance abuse issues. And it just began to escalate and escalate till one day he said, "If you ever leave me," the classic line, "If you ever leave me, I'll kill you." And that kind of got me on my guard. And then when at that time we had our oldest was 4, and he sat her down and told her how he was going to do that. And she told my mom, who told me, who then we've got to get out of here. And for people who don't know or understand abuse, it's easy to say, well, you could have easily just, married somebody else, or, or you could have gotten out of that. There's a cycle that goes into playing this. It starts off with the genuine "I'm sorry," and you start to see some change. And then after a short period of time, that old person comes back. And then they've got you locked in with self-doubt. And the biggest part of this is fear. You're afraid. And because you become afraid, people, even well-meaning people who want to support you don't know what to do. And so they tend to back off. And that happened to me. I had a very dear friend who said, I don't know how to help you. I don't know what to do. I can't watch this anymore. And I lost a friend through this. So I think it's getting women to realize that, one, you're not the first. Sadly, you're not going to be the last. That there are people out there willing to help and support you. with via safe houses, or if you have a supportive family, or whatever it takes to get out. And that's the hardest step, is being able to say, I'm breaking free of this. It's the scariest step you'll ever take if you're
Well,
caught
and
in it. Oh no, you're
sorry to
fine.
interrupt you. They always say, or I've heard said, the most dangerous time of an abusive relationship is when you leave, like right
Yes,
that point,
yes,
right?
yes,
In terms of danger of violence against yourself or your family.
yes,
And so I think that totally understand why that fear would keep you
yes,
there. And like you were talking about with the cycles, yeah, that's such a common pattern, right? Is they'll do something, they'll hit you, they'll yell at you, and then profusely, apologize. Oh my God, I can't believe that. I love you. I'm so sorry. I can't believe I did that. You didn't deserve that. Love bombing, all the things, buy you
yes,
gifts, treat you
yes,
really well for a couple weeks, and then, something sets them off again and it all starts over. And
yes,
I think it's hard for people to understand that abusive relationships aren't always abusive. There's times in the relationship where that person's probably lovely and you
yes,
have good memories with them and you have good times with them. And so it's probably very confusing to separate those times from the times when they are violent and they seem like a completely different person.
exactly.
And wanting
And
to see the good side of them and believe that's more who they are
right,
can keep some people to stay too, I'm sure.
absolutely. For me,
Yeah,
being so young, I mean, what does a 16-year-old know about the world? And I'm raising
totally.
2 kids, and married. I reflect back in that time and I think to myself, wow, my first thought is, and I'll give you a little bit of background about that. I was 14 when I met him.
I was
He
going to
was
ask, yeah.
21.
Okay. So there
He
was
was
always a power dynamic.
always, I was the
Yeah.
young, stupid one. He was the one that was knowledgeable in all areas. I reflect back on what was my mom thinking? My 2
Right.
babies, who are not, they're not babies anymore. My daughters are now 41 and 42.
Oh my gosh.
I think to myself, what would I have done if a 21-year-old man came knocking at my door?
Yeah.
It wouldn't be pretty, I tell you that.
No.
It
I have
wouldn't
two
be
young
pretty.
daughters and I'm like, no, no. Like I always joke with my husband, I'm going to be the one going to the door with a shotgun. Like we don't have
Yes.
a gun. We don't have a gun.
No.
Let me be clear.
No.
But if I
Right.
did,
Yes.
but that's like how I'm going to show up. Like you're here to talk to my daughter about what?
Yes.
Um, Come back in 5 years. No.
Yes. Exactly. But I've been told too that during that time, this was in the 80s, it wasn't a big deal. And I think, how could
Mm.
it not be a big deal? It's gross. When I think about it, it really is. A grown man looking after a little girl. You know,
But you're right. Like I think about it now. My parents, when they met, my mother was 15 and my dad was 19. And I know my grandparents didn't like it. They didn't like that he was older. It actually took quite a while for them to be okay with the relationship. But they were married by the time my mom was 19.
wow.
And my sister, I have an older sister. She was 23 when she had her. So she, didn't have kids right away, but married at a very young age.
Yes.
I would not want my girls get married at 19 now.
No. No.
So I think you're right. Back then it was, and my mother's older than you by far, but back then I think that it maybe was more normalized.
It was very normalized.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, after meeting him, and he had quite the reputation, I will say that he too was abused.
Mm,
So abusers are usually victims of abuse themselves.
yes. Yes, they are.
I mean, when I left the state because his
Hmm.
last words to me was, if you're going to run, you better run far. Expletive, because if I ever find you, I'll kill you. So I spent years walking with my head facing behind me.
Hmm.
Um,
So I
and
was
I,
going to ask if you had run, far from where you were.
I ran not far enough. Although I was in another state, to me, it wasn't far enough. I thought, if he can get in a car and drive, he can find me.
Hmm.
And it wasn't until, let's see, we ran in 88. August 29th of 1988 is when we ran.
I hope you celebrate that day every year now.
I used to dread it, because it would
Mm,
just dredge up so much stuff. And I had a lot of anger and guilt for so long, anger
yeah.
at him and guilt for not being able to protect my kids because they too became victims of his abuse. I had no idea. I had come to a point, a juncture in my life where I thought I dropped out of school going into the 10th grade. What was I thinking? I need to get back to school. And I did. I got back to school and was in school when he was inflicting our daughters with the abuse. And so it wouldn't
Sorry that
be,
happened.
yeah, it wouldn't be till I had left him and we were safe that my youngest daughter started having flashbacks. And then she started talking, which inspired my oldest daughter to start talking. And by the time it was all said and done, I had a tray full of these horrific stories. Um, and I took that upon myself. And even now, at this time, if we talk about it, I will weep because I still feel that angst, that, oh my gosh, how could I have not known? And they tell me all the time, Mom, you couldn't have known. You were busy trying to make things better for us,
Yeah.
So I
But
stayed
I
in.
get it as a mom wanting to
Oh
protect your
yeah,
kids and the horrible guilt you must
yeah,
feel. But yeah, it's something, in my humble opinion, I think you should celebrate that day
we do
because you
now.
did
It's
get out
freedom.
and you did do the right thing for yourself, for your kids, and it
Yeah.
was hard. And
Yes,
you are now like, you know, just moving forward in your life and
I
doing
am.
things for you, which
I
is
am.
great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely has turned into a day of freedom for us.
Hmm.
Um, when I grew up in Pennsylvania. So
Okay.
that's where all this took place. When I ran to Connecticut, which is just maybe three
Hmm.
hours away.
Hmm.
Eventually, and I know it was a God thing because my mother's sister, my aunt that I'm closest with, had no idea what my phone number was, and she got my phone number somehow.
Hmm.
And she says, "Hey, I'm in Washington. It's a great place to raise kids. What do you say?" And I'm usually very methodical in my thinking, and I usually say no. I have to put it all to paper and see what it looks like. I said, "Sure." And we spent 7 days on a Greyhound bus, and I finally felt at that time we got away far enough. And my kids had a wonderful upbringing. They learned everything that I wanted to do that my father wouldn't let me. They got to learn. So they know how to swim, they know how to ride bikes, they know how to do all the fun kid stuff.
I love
And
that.
so, yeah.
Well, so going back to that relationship, when you look back, were there early signs that something wasn't right, that maybe
Oh,
you didn't make the connection then? I mean,
like,
he's much older, so we've talked about that being one for sure. But I
yes.
mean, that doesn't mean every older man is,
Right.
abusive. But I
Right.
think the power dynamic, obviously.
Yeah, the signs were definitely there. One, his infidelity. Two, he was very possessive and controlling. You can't come outside today, or I don't want you talking to so and so. I had male friends that I knew from school. Hey, Ruthie, and I stone face and keep walking. Especially when I was with him, because I knew if I uttered just a single word, that was it.
You pay
That was
for
it.
it.
I would pay for it dearly.
Mhm. Did
Yeah.
he, was he part of the decision you dropped out of school? Did he kind of
Oh yeah.
influence that, or was that, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
as a way to control you and keep
Sure.
you, small, right?
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
cut off a network of people that you had and isolate, which is a huge, like, I know a lot of survivors talk about being isolated. So
Yes.
sounds like that was something you experienced, but
That
can you
it
talk
didn't
a little
come
bit
right
about that?
away. It didn't
Yeah.
come right away, but towards the end, it was very much, I don't want you with your mom. I don't want you talking to, so and so. My friend Mary, who eventually, like I said, she just couldn't do it anymore. He would say, if that phone rings and you pick it up and it's not me, you better hang it up. That it's just these little, don't look out the window, that kind of thing. It was very, very odd. But yeah, there were signs everywhere. Signs
Yeah.
everywhere. But because it was so normal to me, having grown up
Yes.
in it, what do? I thought, well, I love him, and there's a reason he's that way. Maybe he's trying to protect me. And it wasn't that at all. It was just all about the control.
Mm-hmm. And what was your mom's reaction? Like you had said, you were surprised, like she didn't have an issue with him being older, but as you guys were together and given her own experience, did she know what was happening and what was her
She
response?
definitely knew what was happening, and she said, "If he hits you the first time, he'll hit you again." And I'll never forget the first slap he gave me, and I let it go, which led to more. Um, she was not happy, but she was also, because of her upbringing and her own experiences, she was going a different direction in her own life. And honestly, she wasn't there to support me. She was not there. So I had zero support. And oddly enough, the person who rescued me from the abuse and got me away was my initial abuser, which was my father.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And
Can
I
you
thought the
share more
irony in
about how
that,
that happened?
he did not like my husband. He felt like, this guy just got his claws into you. He's dragging you down. He's not good for you. And he would say that, he's trying to keep you down. This is why you can't do this. And this is why you can't do that. Why are you staying? And I would look at him and think to myself, for the same reason my mom stayed with you.
Yeah.
She did it for 14 years of this kind of abuse. Um, so it went in one ear and out the other. But after he would send his wife down frequently to visit me, and she witnessed the abuse firsthand, and she called him, and he said, "I know I've come down there before. You've never come back with me. This time I'm coming, and you're coming." And that's how it played out. He showed up, um, and it's odd that my husband knew why he was there. I
Hmm.
guess he could feel it, like, oh, I've lost my grip, which led to a kind of a moment where he had me locked up in a room with him and said, "What are you planning? Are you planning on leaving me? If you tell me you're leaving me right now, this is where it ends." So I had to stay a step ahead of him mentally to play
Yeah.
the game. And I said, I wouldn't leave anywhere and not bring you with me. I had to play his game. And fortunately for me, it worked. I ended up being able to get out of the room and come down to the living room where my family was. But the next morning, we went the next morning and took care of things that I needed to take care of so that I could leave. We came back and he saw that my father had packed up my things. My father's idea was, not only are you coming with me, but I'm taking all your stuff too. He doesn't get anything. And that, I told him,
Good.
Dad, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
And sure enough, he came down, and that's when everything kind of blew up. Police were called. They came. They knew him by name. That's how much trouble he would get in with the law. And they said, "Hey, Mike, how's it going?" And he said, "Well, it's not going good today. This one's trying to leave me." And so they asked my father, "What are you trying to do?" And he says, "I want to take her stuff. I don't want him living free off of her." And they were like, "That's not how it works. You take what you can physically take, suitcases, bags, boxes, whatever, and that's it. You're done."
Wow.
So, yeah,
Really feel like the police were on your side or advocating for you in that situation.
no, no,
That's total bullshit. I'm
no,
sorry that you had
it
to deal with
is. And I had, I'll never forget that day. I had on jewelry that was given to me by my great aunt. And he looked and he said, "Her, look at all that jewelry. That's all mine. That's stuff I bought her." And they made me strip all of my jewelry and hand it over.
that.
I was
Makes
happy
me
to
so
do it.
mad.
I was happy to do it if it meant I could get away from him.
Yeah, it means your freedom, but
Yeah,
that
it
makes me
is.
so angry.
Yeah,
It's just another example of like victimizing the victim,
it
you
is.
know?
And then being victimized by the police
Yeah.
by not believing anything that you're saying. And it wouldn't be until a few years later in Connecticut, that a woman by the name of Tracy Thurman went through the same thing. And she had called the police countless times. And the law then stated that a person could not be arrested unless they witnessed the act of abuse. She put out a restraining order. He ends up showing up at her new place and he stabs her. and then stomps on her head. I mean, they made it into a Lifetime movie.
Yeah,
It was that prominent, but it took her going through her story and her situation for the law to change, which means a police doesn't need to be present to see a smack across the face or a punch to the face. If the person has said, "I've been struck," that's enough.
totally.
But how sad that she had to, it took her
Well,
being stabbed, to get the law to change.
her and countless other women, unfortunately. I mean,
Many.
I think that's the huge issue here is that it hasn't changed enough.
No.
And you see this all the time in like the media too. I think about NFL players and Ray Rice, different things that have come out, and Diddy, and the
Yeah.
videos
And
of them openly beating their partners,
and
and
he's getting out.
still, yeah, and still not getting prosecuted to the
Yeah.
fullest amount of the law. And it's like, well, of course, women are going to be afraid to come out against their abusers because there's documented visible proof here, and
Yes.
they're still getting off.
Yes. And
So,
the countless stories of other women that were also abused by that same person who said
oh,
it happened to me
100%.
too. And it's like, big deal. Who cares?
Yeah. And those
You
are
know?
just two of the many, ones I've seen in media. And it's it's not only, of course these men have a lot of money and they have a lot of influence and they have access to good lawyers and all the things, but even if they don't, even if it's just a normal guy and a normal woman, you see all the time, one got a restraining order against somebody, he went around it and came and killed her, and it's just the lack of protection.
Yes.
In this case, it still blows my mind and just sickens me what women have to go through to get away from situations like this. So
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
just so glad that you did.
yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because one of the things that kind of opened the jar for me again, through my studies in social work, I picked a law that I have to dissect, and it's
Mm,
Savannah's law. And this was a sheriff's officer who was killed by her boyfriend, and she did all the right steps. And so, what this law now entails, which, Lord help me, I don't agree with this law. I don't see how it's going to help women, but okay, here we go. We're going to go through this ride. It They've created a registry for chronic abusers.
mhm,
If their partners call and he's hit me again, they arrest him. He's in jail. There's a court date that's brought up, and then he gets put on this registry. And any woman, say if you meet a guy and you want to know any dirt on him, you can go to this registry and see that, oh, he's an abuser, which
mhm.
is great for the girl who's looking and has the ability to look,
Yeah,
right? But the only way they can be put on the registry is if the one that's being abused shows up to court. And I thought to myself, reading this, I thought, how many women are going to do that? Not
no,
many.
no,
Not many.
because it puts them at a huge risk.
At the huge risk. And we're talking marginalized communities. Some of these women can't afford internet. Some of these women don't have a support system. Many of these women are afraid for their lives, and they know that if they show up to court and they lose, then it's really on, you know? And I just don't see how a registry is going to help the woman that's currently stuck in an abusive relationship. It
Yeah,
just helps the next woman if she's astute enough to know that there's this handy little law that's come into play. And it just passed the beginning of this year. And the more I read, the more frustrated I got. And I thought it has to change where the abusers are put into prison. They need to, and not prison to, as, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying get even and punish those bastards. I'm saying they need to be in a place where they can get the help they need.
mhm.
And if jail is where that's going to happen, then so be it. There's been too many women have lost their lives.
Agreed. and
And
men need to be held accountable for their actions. It's
absolutely.
not acceptable
And,
to
and just like women
hurt
need to be held,
another person. Absolutely. If a woman
there is
is beating
abusing.
someone, they should be going to jail as well.
Yeah, yeah,
There's definitely obviously instances of women abusing partners, women abusing their
yes,
children.
yes.
Like there should be no exceptions in
And
this.
if it's shameful for us as women to step forward, being women, and there's many, many women around us that, I think we all know someone who knows someone who knows someone that's being abused. How much more for a man?
Oh yeah.
Aren't you a man's man? Aren't you, why don't you just give it back to her? What's wrong with you? And it's like some men weren't raised to be hitters.
Hmm.
Some men were raised right.
Exactly.
So I really feel that part of the solution to this is not just stricter laws with penalties, but it starts at home. It's whether you're a single mom or you're a full family, pouring into your daughters and sons to love themselves enough to not want to, that they won't tolerate such a thing, that they
Exactly.
love themselves enough to love somebody else wholly. For fathers to be the example to their daughters, because that's who they typically fashion their future partner after. Same thing for moms. The sons are looking to the mom to see how is mom with dad, to see them being affectionate with one another. If it starts at home, the chances of it turning into something like what I've been through are very, very low.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah,
And modeling healthy relationships, not only in your partnerships, but in your friendships
that's right.
and who you let have access to you and to your children,
That's
making
right.
sure those people are healthy and that they are around, good people who are
Absolutely.
respectful, right?
Yes.
And so that they never have a model of someone being treated in a negative way, whether it be emotionally, physically, mentally, and see that tolerated.
Yes.
I'm a big believer in that. And I
Yes.
have removed people from my life because
I
I
have
did
to.
not want examples of those type of relationships for my kids to witness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, in the many years that I spent shielding my daughters and protecting them, they were 15 and 16. They came to me, can we find our father? What?
Yeah. How did you respond to
What?
that?
Not very well.
Yeah.
Not very well. I said, if you proceed with this, I will leave
Hmm.
and you will come with me, but we're not going to stay in the area because then he'll know where we're at, that kind of thing. It wouldn't be till my youngest was in her late 20s. She says, Mom, I have to find him. I have questions I need answers to. And because I didn't have that, I didn't want that to be for her. I didn't want her to have to go through the same struggles I went through in that area. So she did reach out and found them. And it was healing for both of them. So all these years later have passed, and I was asked to make a phone call to him because they were worried about him. I called him and he immediately knew my voice. That
Hmm.
was the weird thing. He immediately knew my voice and he said, Ruthie, is that you? And all I said was, yes, Michael. And he stopped for a second and I could hear that he was trying to hold back tears. And he said, I want to thank you for taking the girls away the way that you did. They sound like beautiful young women. And you would think my feathers would have ruffled up and said, ha, that's right, you owe me that. But it wasn't like that at all. Almost felt uh, it's hard to describe the feeling. I felt like, okay, I've heard it. And I said I would do it all over again if I had to. But it was just it landed softly and I just left it. It was like, okay, it's there. I didn't need vindication from him, oddly enough,
Yeah. You
and
provided
then
that for yourself.
I did. And to me, it was just, how do I know those aren't just pretty words that you're speaking again?
Yeah. Because you
You
have
know,
that history.
exactly. But his actions with the girls, as especially my youngest, she kept in touch with him the most. My oldest still has struggles. And I told her, no one will push you to do anything you're not ready for. And she said, I know, Mom, that's why I'm telling you. And he ended up dying. Um, he ended up dying alone, and I was brokenhearted for him. And I thought, here I am brokenhearted for somebody who put me through hell. Because it just wasn't physical abuse, it was mental abuse, it was psychological, it was emotional, it was sexual, you name it, the whole gamut. And he died alone, and I thought nobody deserves to die alone. And he had stopped using, he had gotten his life together, he had done the things, and I thought, I was asking myself, well, why didn't he do that when he should have? Oh, to be 20 and dumb, I guess.
I mean, you weren't dumb. You were young. You didn't know any better. Like you
Yeah.
said, you grew up in this type of a cycle, and it's great that he did, turn his life around.
Yes.
And I'm sure a big part of that was you leaving and,
Mhm.
him having to face and confront who he was and why that happened and losing his family. And yeah, what a sad thing
It is.
that it took so long and such drastic action for him to change. But yeah, good for you to like give your children the choice for what they
Yes.
needed for themselves,
Yes.
because that had to be really hard to not want to, like, again, keep protecting them
Right.
from something that you didn't know how it was going to go for them. But yeah, I think sounds like you did a really, really great job with your
Thank
girls.
you. Thank you. I have
You're
tried,
very
but
strong.
parenting isn't foolproof. They're not born with a
No.
little user's manual. I wish,
Oh
but
yeah, girl, mine are 6 and 9, and I'm just getting into the fun tween, stuff with my older
oh, I
ones. So
love that
pray
age.
for me. I'm
I
like, should
love
I
that.
just start ordering boxes of wine now? Like, I don't know.
You can have as a nurse, I can tell you, have a nice daily dose in the evening after they've gone to bed.
Yes.
You'll be all right.
So, I mean, it sounds like obviously you've done a lot of healing, and you talked to me before we started about how you've healed a lot from this. What does healing look like for you since leaving that situation? What did
Ooh,
you do for yourself? What were the steps you took to get to where you are now?
I I told myself for years, especially as my girls were growing up, that I'm having to play a dual role now. I'm mom and dad. So when I needed to play dad, I played dad. Not that I was very good at that, but they knew mom had rules. They were expected to be followed. If I knew that I could keep them safe, that was a win for me. I took that on as a part of healing. Like, okay, they're not going to turn out like him. Um, a lot of talks with my daughters. Healing um, took place for me in talking with my mother. I never got that from my dad. I never got closure with my dad. He has too since passed on. Um, it, I journaled a lot, and I sought the help of a therapist. And healing for me was being able to forgive myself for those areas that I thought I failed so drastically, and to look at myself and say, it's okay to love yourself. You're not those things that were driven into your head all those years. That you're ugly, that you're stupid, that you can't, that nobody will ever want you, that you'll never marry again, and who's going to want you. And that I could look at myself and say those were all lies. I spent many years by myself. I spent 45 years, I think, single. And I recently got married in December.
Well,
Thank
congratulations.
you, thank you. I found a wonderful, wonderful man
I love
who
that.
is he's my best friend. And I know we women say that all the time, and it's always, so cliche, but we had the discussions before we even started our relationship. And I put all my cards out on the table, and I said, here's why I'm doing this. I need you to know. and here's what I will tolerate, and here's what I'm not. If
Good for
you're
you.
if you're good with those things I've laid on the table, then we can be friends, and if it turns into more, then fine. If not, then you shall go your way and I will go mine. I've discovered my voice. That was another really good part about healing, is regaining my voice, regaining my power. And being able to help other women that are in similar situations, giving them the advice that I wish somebody would have given me. All of those things are healing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, as I know, but people listening don't know, you're going to school to become a social worker.
I am.
And so, yeah, you are walking the walk in helping other women in these
Yes,
type of situations. And that's a beautiful thing
it
to be
is.
able to use something that was really painful for you and give purpose to your life and help others.
Yes. And I plan to do that. I plan to do just that. Is all these life experiences that I have had, not just with the abuse, but being a teen mom or being promiscuous. Not that I was promiscuous, but giving in to someone sexually when you're not ready, and the things that follow, being the single mom, the tired single mom working 3 jobs. I plan to use all of that. It wasn't in vain that I went through it. You know, I plan on utilizing all of that when I'm out in the field and helping others. Um, I know I'm only one person. I can't change the world, but if I can leave my thumbprint on people as they come in and out of my life, then my life would have been worth it.
And you change the
Absolutely.
world one person at a time.
You do.
So you
You
never know
do.
who you're going to impact, and they might
That's
change the
right.
world.
That's right. And that's what it's about. I think if we women got together, imagine what a powerful thing that would be, to share our stories and say, "Hey, I've
Seriously.
I've been there. I know that bites." And then, sister, come here, let me give you that hug. You're
Hmm.
worthy. You're worthy to be treated as a human being, or you're worthy not to be hit, or you're worthy to, you're beautiful just as you are, or just simple words. Imagine the impact if we as women got together and did that for each other. And
Yeah.
that's where I get my motivation from, is I know there's someone out there struggling. I know there's, whether it's food insecure, I don't care, something as something that most people would take for granted, food insecurity. You know what? Let's get you some food, honey. Let I can do that. My friends call me Zoomer because I can find anything. So
I know who I'm going to call now when I have a question for
that's
something.
that's
I wish
it.
you were lived closer to me.
Hey, that won't
Yeah,
stop me. I can still find.
you can find
Um,
things in Canada. Fantastic.
That's right. Yeah. And so it's I'm not afraid to get into the trenches.
Yeah.
It's part of who I am.
And what you said about, yeah, sharing stories and helping one person, like that resonates very deeply with me because I feel the same way about what I'm doing with, my hair loss and helping women. But also, like, that was a big reason I started this podcast was, sharing stories like this,
Yes,
putting it out there, taking the shame away from it, letting other women who are going through similar situations know they're not the only ones. And
that's
there are
right.
people that they could reach out to talk to.
And I'm so
So,
grateful that you've done this. I really am, because I can't the stories that will come out of this
yeah,
are going to be so impactful. Just listening to the one about miscarriages, and it's like, oh, you know, uh, those things leave a mark on you. They leave a
they
good
do.
mark, and we need more of that.
Hmm.
So kudos to you, sister.
Thank you. Yeah, there's been some really good conversations, including this one that I'm very excited for people to hear.
Thank you.
What's if you were to think of some of the biggest challenges in rebuilding your life or your sense of self after leaving that relationship, what do you think it would be?
I think the hardest part for me was shaking off the labels that had been put on me. That was huge. Realizing that I'm not that person that they say I am. That took a great deal of work, and I did a lot of that work alone. Um, because, like I said, once I left, it was just me and the girls. Um, even though my father had rescued me, I didn't have him to lean on. I was there with him a week, and he ended up in prison himself. So, um, And his way of fixing things was not my way of fixing things. So just shaking off those labels, trying to figure out how to keep the family unit together and strong was another difficult piece for me. So I was on state assistance for quite a while. I wanted to be home for the girls. They still manifested signs of trauma themselves still. And I figured if I need to be home. And I got a lot of flack for that. I got a lot of flack for that. So shaking that off was difficult as well. But in the end, it all worked out.
I know we talked about this a little bit at the beginning, but is there anything that you wish, anything else that maybe you didn't mention that you wish more people understood about domestic violence?
Um, it's a disease. It's a disease because, like I said, most of people that are the abusers have been abused themselves. It's a very traumatic cycle. I later found out that my ex-husband uh, was abused in ways that I just thought, well, which is why he inflicted it on our girls. We don't seek to marry abusers. We don't seek to be partners with abusers. I think that by the time we realize that, oh, I'm with an abuser, it's almost too late. Um, Especially, like I said, if you don't have a strong support system in place or people that love you enough to say, you got to come with us. If we want you to be well, this is the only way you can do it, and encourage you to take that first step. Um, we're not weak by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, we tolerate a lot and still managed to somehow love through it. We are not dumb. We're not dumb. We just happen to be caught up in a situation that we weren't expecting to be caught up in, and now comes, however that happens, we have to figure out a way to escape. Um, and we do love our families. That, for me, we got 2 girls out of this. I love my children. I don't see them as anything but beautiful because they came out of an abuser. It doesn't mean that, well, there's another, victim here who's going to probably suck the system dry, being on welfare and blah, 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 blah. And that cycle, that stigma continues to go on.
Yeah, it does.
And that we're not that. We are, in fact, capable, strong women who happen to be caught up into something that is going to take us a minute to get out of.
Yeah, I think those are all really valid points. What would you say to someone listening who might be in a situation like you experienced?
I think the first thing I would say is you're not alone. That the first step is the hardest step, but you must take that first step. Whether that's going to a safe house, you can call the crisis number. It's a 988 number nationwide. And they can place you somewhere safe and help you to begin that process of getting your life together and giving you that safety that you need for not just the person being abused, but if there's children involved, the same thing. Find that one person that you trust beyond anything and share. Don't keep anything to yourself. You're not at fault here. You shouldn't be ashamed. This happens all the time, and it's okay to speak out. It's okay to say no to your abuser. If you know that you're being abused on a daily basis, no matter what you do, that you can pick up the phone, dial 911 and say, pizza, I need a pizza delivered. And they'll know that what's going on. And even if you don't give an address, they can track you down.
That's such a good tip that I think a
Yeah,
lot of people have no idea about
yeah.
that.
There is
Yeah.
that, and that wasn't around when I was going through it. It was what's going on, and here I'm going into this big long story, but now you can say I need a pizza delivered.
Isn't
What
there also a hand signal? I feel like I've seen commercials. Yes. Yes. Can you explain that for people who are just listening?
So if you're out in, let's say you're out in public and your abuser's starting in on you, you can do this and this, do it repeatedly.
And
And
she's got her thumb folded in with her four fingers up, and then she's closing her hand over her thumb
yep,
and opening it again for
yep,
those of you who are just listening.
yep. And so that is a sign for help. And a lot of people know the sign. And if they
Hmm.
see it, they will reach out to you, reach out to get you help. They'll call 911 for you. Another one, I don't know that a lot of women find themselves in situations where their abusers take them to bars. They can also go to the bartender and say something along the lines of, I need an angel drink.
Hmm.
And I think when they use the word angel, that tells them you're in trouble and they call the police.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So there's more help out there today than there ever was.
Yeah.
And so, when you make that step to call 911 and they come and they get him or her, then the process begins of you getting that restraining order. And I hate to say this, the only way that a lot of this stops is if you pick it up and move.
Yeah.
You cannot stay in the same place because the abuse doesn't stop there.
Yeah.
It
You have to remove
doesn't.
access to yourself.
You have to remove their access to you. So if again, safe houses will give you a place to stay. They feed you, clothe you, and everything else, and help you get your life back on track. So don't be afraid to take that step, is what I would say. And don't wait. Don't fall for the flowery words. Don't fall for the acts. Don't just it's an abusive situation. It's abusive. It's abusive. It's abusive. You have to leave.
Looking at back at your journey today, what are you most proud of in yourself?
Oh, that I've overcome. That I can stand here today and say I survived. I'm a survivor. I'm a survivor. A survivor of many things, but dealing with the abuse, that I was able to get away, and as unconventional as that help came, like I said, it came through my father, who was also abusive to us. Um, I don't know that I would have been able to get away the way that I did if had it not been for him. So I think God has a way of putting people in your life, even people like that are there to help you in some weird fashion. Um, because he did in that way rescue me and got me out.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm proud of myself that I took that first step, that I didn't stay and fall for the tears and fall for the act, that I picked myself up and my children and we left. I'm most proud of being a survivor, knowing that I got away. Luckily, we got away with our lives, and I celebrate that internally all the time.
Yes, you should.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of you. And I am so grateful that I got to learn about this side of you. Obviously, I see
You.
a very different side on Instagram with the
Sure.
hair, and that's all very fun.
Yes.
But this is a really important conversation. And I'm just so appreciative of you being so open about
Absolutely.
such a difficult topic. And I'm going in the show notes, I will definitely link resources to um, help domestic violence hotlines, things for every
Yes.
country. So I will link for the US, for Canada, for the UK, as many as I can find, so that if someone listening is in this situation, that they have a place to start to
Absolutely.
get help.
Yes.
Because Ruth is right, you have to get out. And we saying that's going to be easy, but you deserve to get out and have a life where you can be happy and not fear for your safety.
That's right.
Well, thank you, Ruth, for being here.
You're
This
welcome.
was
Thank
such
you
a
for
lovely
having me.
conversation.
Absolutely.
And I will be following you on Instagram. I'm sure
All
we'll
right.
be DMing. But
That's right.
thank y'all for listening today. And If this story resonated, I hope that you will share it with someone in your life who you think might need it. Until next time, we'll talk soon. Thank you for being here and for listening to another powerful conversation on shedding the shame. If something in today's episode resonated with you, I want you to sit with that. Let it land. Let it remind you that whatever you're carrying, you don't have to carry it quietly. Shame survives in silence. Healing begins when we speak. If this episode moved you, share it with a woman who needs to hear it. Start the conversation. Send the text. Have the brave talk. And if you're ready to stop whispering about your own story, keep coming back. These conversations are just getting started. Until next time, keep telling the truth, keep taking up space, and keep shedding the shame.